Fnusa57 here. Once again, I'm back on my Xbox Series X to bring another video out there for you guys. This time, I am working on Elden Ring, and this video will be the first 5 things that you should do right away when you start Elden Ring, or technically immediately after you start Elden Ring. There's also going to be one thing that you could kind of avoid, so a little bit of a tip there, and I will not be editing this video into a hyper edit format, so starting right at the first site of grace after you finish the quote tutorial, you're going to proceed up the elevator, and there might be a couple little spoilers, so if you don't want any spoilers at all, I suggest you pause the video. As always, of course, remember to smash that like button, share the video, and subscribe for more content. It doesn't hurt to tickle the little notification icon bell so that you don't miss any notifications. But as soon as you exit the tutorial area, regardless of the character that you choose to play, this will be the first 5 things that you wish to do immediately. So do not make the mistakes that I did in my first impressions video and go wandering off chasing, loot. The very first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to actually activate the Sites of Grace. You should have 2 Sites of Grace in the tutorial area, and then you're going to grab, technically we'll backtrack a little bit, but if you don't have these 2 Sites of Grace, I'm not going to be able to show you the one thing because I have other Sites of Grace on this playthrough. But that's where I made the mistake of I did not grab this Site of Grace right in front of me. It's not a bad idea to grab that. You can talk to this NPC. The first thing we're going to cover is what you can avoid. There is a golden knight right out in front here. And that golden knight, it kind of looks like you're supposed to fight him, but he is ridiculously strong for being literally right in your face. So what you want to do is you want to avoid him for now, at least. And pretty much the easiest way to do that is just to go around here to the side. We're looking for this church. It is relatively straightforward. I can't believe I missed this, but I was following pretty much what I like to call loot sickness, which is, oh hey, that's shiny, get back here, crystal lizard. And needless to say, it led me to a, bit of a disastrous outcome. But you're going to find this Church of Ella, and there is also a Site of Grace here inside the church. It's not necessarily a bad idea to activate this Site of Grace, but it may cause you to do something out of order. So I would first recommend, if you have 2 Sites of Grace like I do, that you come over here and there'll be a item that you can grab and then this NPC that you can talk to. I highly recommend that you buy out this NPC's inventory. This NPC is Kale. He is a wandering merchant, supposedly. Kale, I believe is how you pronounce it. So I may get these guys' names wrong because they're just weird. You can get some information about him. You can get the recommendation, and it really doesn't matter. You might be short a few runes to buy out his entire inventory, so you can very easily kill some of the sheep and the eagles and the little fox weird creatures that are right there in the beginning, just after the tutorial section.
Every customer counts, after all.
So if you want, you can do that, but you'll get his recommendation. You can get the lore about him. It's up to you. But this is going to be effectively the tutorial for buying and a whole lot of other things. So keep in mind that, but also keep in mind that Elden Rings, Dark Souls is cryptic on telling you what to do. Elden Rings is like, here's how you fight, figure out the rest on your own. So, it's a little nuts, but I recommend pretty much buying out this guy's inventory. There's a few things that you definitely want, in my opinion. We want to learn how to do summon signs. We want to learn how to do crafting and things like that. So definitely buy the tools, especially since this is open world. If you have the runes, you absolutely want to buy the telescope, the Furl calling. I don't even know, but you want to buy the finger remedy. Why you can hold multiple ones and they cost 1,000 each, I don't honestly know. That's something that I find to be weird, but it reveals co-op and hostile summon signs. I'm not sure if it's consumed when you summon or use a summon sign or not, but before you buy multiple ones of those, you want to get these cookbooks. I can't stress that enough. You want to buy the crafting kit. So I had like 5,000 runes when I started, but you want to buy the crafting kit? Absolutely, because that unlocks the ability to craft. And then you want to buy these cookbooks, because basically the cookbook expands the crafting category. So you want to buy all 3 of those. It's a pretty good idea to grab the torch. If you want to get any of the armor upgrades, you can. If you want to get these notes, I highly recommend, as long as you have enough, you can get the notes. I highly recommend that you grab things like the torch and both of the notes. The notes will give you the different waypoint, which is nice. The note on the Flask of Wondrous Psychic, it's not a bad idea to grab this one because we can actually grab that later. So I would recommend doing that. If you want, you can also grab arrows and bolts for the crossbow. There's throwing knives. There's quite a few different things that this dude has to sell. The cracked pots, which are a container for throwable items. And you can just go through the entire inventory there and buy him out. To buy out the entire inventory, you would need, well, if you wanted all of the finger remedies, you would need about another 4,000 plus, especially if you wanted the chainmail armor, which for most classes that will be a slight upgrade. So personal preference on you on what you want to do for that. But if you are short, then you can go ahead and just really do what you want. And then it'll say item crafting. So basically it explains a little bit about crafting and containers and what they're used for. And then you can go ahead and go craft if you want. Of course, at this point, very important, before it gets dark. So on the world map, you can see the timer on it in the bottom right hand corner. But you want to make sure that you do this before it gets dark in the game. With that being said, if you want to go back and harvest souls, you can. And then you can buy out that dude's inventory. It's entirely up to you. As far as harvesting souls goes, though, you're not going to get that many souls from killing these creatures. You're only going to get about 5 souls from killing them because they're relatively low level. However, there is an item that you may have in your inventory that can help you out with this. So if you go into your inventory, one item that you may have picked up is a golden rune. They come from different things, different skulls and whatnot around the map. And if you want, you can use them, and each one that you use gives you like 200 runes. So if you have a number of them, then you can go ahead and easily buy out the rest of the stuff there. So that's the little trick that I'm going to use. Just keep that in mind. Also, item crafting is unlocked. So because we purchased all of those, we can do these different types of meat, holy water, fire pots, glowstones. That's a resource. But we can go through and we've learned how to craft like bone darts, which is a cheap throwing item. The meat, the different fire pots and roped pots, And then, of course, you've also learned how to craft the basic bone arrows, fletched bone arrows, and things of that nature. Not really anything too crazy, but you have learned how to do that crafting. And then with the physical protection items, like we can see the wooden shield, it's not quite as good as the leather shield, and the armor isn't quite as good as the other armor in terms of protection, but it's also quite a bit lighter, at least than the armor that I have. So if you want the chainmail is not a bad choice, and I would probably say to buy it, but it would be personal preference, up to you. So like I said, if you don't have enough of the souls, you can either go and kill a few enemies, or you can go and use the golden runes if you have golden runes to spare, which I do because I went a little bit loot happy. Next up on our list is going to be a super helpful item. Now, once again, from this traveling merchant, after you've finished either buying everything he has or bought simply the items that I recommended, our next option is going to be gatefront runes. And this is very important because we're going to get a super, super useful item, and this will also let us level up our characters. So, as I mentioned earlier, if you have at least the first 2 sites of grace, then you're alright. You don't have to worry about this site of grace. But what we're going to do is go straight to the north. And we're pretty much looking for the gatefront runes. And as soon as you find the gatefront runes, then you will be good to go, and there will be a site of grace there that we need to interact with as well. Alright, so as you can see here, we are on the map, and we are at the kind of in between Stormgate and Gatefront runes on the map, directly north of the church. The church is where we need to go back to here very shortly, but you want to make sure that you rest at this site of grace. Now, if you did what I said earlier and you have the first 2 sites of grace, this will be your 3rd site of grace, and you will get a special cutscene that you've seen in my first impressions video where you meet a particular NPC, and it will be your first time meeting Melina, I believe is her name, and she'll explain who she is, a little bit of lore, and offer you her aid. Accept her aid, and then you will be able to level up your character, which is super awesome. It's very, very surprising that the game does not tell you this, but you have to get your 3rd site of grace discovered, and then when you go ahead and go down in the options, you will have one of the options that says level up, which allows you to exchange your runes that you're holding, which are basically souls from Dark Souls. It allows you to exchange those at an ever-increasing rate to increase your level, and you can choose one of these different options as far as stats. Not 100% on what Arcane does just yet. It's Discovery, so I'm pretty sure that is more your luck stat, and the other 7 stats are mostly your combat stats. But that is a huge thing, because without that, you cannot actually level up your character. And it's very important, because it took me forever to figure out that in fact is the case. You have to unlock your 3rd Sight of Grace. It does not matter what Sight of Grace you unlock, but you should unlock your 3rd one as soon as possible. That is also going to give you a very special ring that you can equip in your inventory if you want. It's going to give you this Spirit Mount ring, and you will see I have it in my pouch here. It is the Spectral Steed Whistle. So insanely important that you get that. Trying to go through the game without leveling up your character and without a mount would be very, very frustrating. In order to use that item, you must hold the button to bring up the secondary menu slot. So on Xbox, that's the Y button, and then press whatever slot it is that you have it equipped to. That will allow you to summon your very own Spectral Steed, which you can also fight from on horseback or mounted. But the annoying thing is, to dismount, you must hold Y to bring up the secondary inventory and select the ring again. So, yeah. Also keep in mind, resting at that Sight of Grace will respawn any enemies that were dead. For our next thing, some people have reported that you can only do this at night. So check the map timer, and depending on exactly what the timer was when you exited the beginning area, it may already be night, but you can also wait till night at a Sight of Grace. Your choice. What we're going to do is we're going to get a Spirit Calling Bell. So this is another very important NPC that we have to meet with. And just because of the time, I'm going to go ahead and use the pass time option. And we're just going to wait until nightfall. So we'll spin that dial a little bit more. It probably would have only been a couple minutes, but that's all right. Now, some of the area is more dangerous at night, so just keep that in mind. Of course, we can go ahead and summon our mount. Another important thing about the mount that I should mention is that you can go ahead and pick up items while you're on horseback. So you can pick up items, you can target enemies, you can pillage corpses, you can do all that fun stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to head back to the church. And you really don't want to get into combat that much if you can avoid it. The church is pretty much south of where we were, and there's quite a few enemies between there and where we were at. You can kill the little creatures if you want. It's great for getting small beast bones, for making your first arrows. And just avoid the boss knight. There's another golden rune right there, in case you guys were short on golden rune. Alright, so if you are like me and unable to get this particular NPC to show up when you return to the Church of Ella, you need to actually do something that is kind of the opposite of what we would normally want to do. So basically, as soon as you get the ring that allows you to summon the Spectral Steed, you should be able to come back here and there will be another NPC. Usually you have to do it at night. It doesn't matter though, if you get the glitch that I have on my world, you actually only have one workaround, and that workaround is to let this dude right here kill you once. So this is the boss that I mentioned you really should avoid. This is the Tree Sentinel Knight, and this dude is insanely strong for a very early game boss. You can tell who he is, the Tree Sentinel, because, well, I mean, he's kind of, you know, standing out like a sore thumb. But this dude will basically take you down in, well, pretty much one hit. So for an early game boss, he's kind of OP, and he can completely block magic. But that's alright, because we actually need him to kill us at least one time in order to get the particular NPC that we want to show up.
May I have a word?
And it's so weird that you have to do that, because when you die, you drop all your runes on the ground, and if you die a second time, they're gone permanently. But I guess this is kind of a way to help you out. So this is Renna the witch,
A pleasure to meet.
and she is very important.
I'd heard tell of a tarnished hurtling about atop a spectral steed, and upon looking into the matter, the talk I surmise is of thee. Thou art possessed of the power, no? To call forth a spectral steed named Torrent.
And it is very important that you say you can call the spectral steed.
I was entrusted this for thee by Torrent's former master.
So you're gonna, sorry, English. You're gonna get two things: the bell and the lone wolf ashes.
Forth spirit.
Now, it's not the best for magic casters,
Return to the Erdtree.
but it does actually.
But briefly.
Oh, it's pretty cool. It takes FP or mana
Now it is that.
to summon them, but it gives you another entity that fights with you. So, very, very cool feature.
Forgive mine intrusion, Tarnished. I doubt how long will it be for the Tarnished?
And if you want, you can get a little bit of extra lore by talking to that NPC twice. So, if you did have runes on you when you let the knight kill you, then I highly suggest you grab the runes quickly and run like hell. So just retrieve your lost loot if you had to do what I did. It doesn't matter what day time it is. If you want to wait till day, you can. For our next step, this is going to be one that will take us quite a while to do, because, well, we don't even have the rest of the map. That's how far away this is. We don't even have the rest of the map unlocked yet. But for our next step, we're going to want to get that flask that we purchased the notes on, the Wondrous psychic flask. And you'll notice that in Kale's notes that we purchased, we read about this flask. It still remains in the third church, north of Mistwood. So that gives you an idea of where it is. Now, from this quest, or from these notes, I should say, there is actually no way to directly open the map and give yourself a waypoint. But it is all the way to the east. Like, crazy far to the east from the waypoint runes. So personally, I would recommend going to the site of Grace that's up there by the waypoint runes. And then if you have the map available, you're going to want to put a marker down on the third church. Otherwise, just note that you have to be always traveling east along the road. So simply summon your mount, put the compass towards east, and move as quickly as you possibly can. You can always come back and grab all these other items and enemies and whatnot later, that is completely up to you. And thankfully, riding, even while at a gallop, it does not consume stamina, which is awesome. So just continue to head east, and eventually your map will be updated. If you want, you can pick up Sites of Grace along the way. Technically, that it's never a bad thing to pick up Sites of Grace, at least that I've discovered. There are mounted enemies. You can fight them. Technically, it's like a mini-boss, basically. Or if you can, just leash them out of the way. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be leashing them out of the way. You'll notice I made a slight mistake with the whole heading east thing. When you cross that bridge at night, there's a mini-boss that you can get. And then there's this whole giant carriage coming up. You want to avoid those, and you want to take the path that looks like it's going to take you to the north. But we're actually going to go northeast. It's a little bit of a roundabout, you know, mechanic. But if you stay off the main roads and you stay away from too many of the main groups of enemies, it should be a relatively easy journey for you, even at a low level or unupgraded. The whole thing is we want this flask because it's going to make life so much easier. You can fight enemies, you can loot along the way. I'm just trying to get there as quickly as possible.
Hello? Is anybody there? Someone who might be interested in rescuing the great Kale, servant to the true order and celebrated repudiator of the false.
And then eventually you will come to this particular church. Yes, we finally made it, guys. I highly recommend that you go ahead and grab the Site of Grace. This way you have a checkpoint in case you do die. And you'll notice that it is way over here. The third church of Mariak, I believe. And this is where we can find our flask. So it's not too terribly far away, but hey, it's there. You also get a sacred tier, which is nice. So I would highly recommend picking up that sacred tier. And here is the Wondrous Flask. So cool, right? And it tells you, of course, you can find, you know, crystal tears at the base of, you know, certain trees and everything. In Sites of Grace, you can mix 2 crystal tears in the flask, and it allows you to create elixirs with various custom effects, which is really cool, by the way. So, I should mention something about this flask. You technically have 3 flasks. You have the Crimson Tears flask, which is your health flask. You have the blue one, which is mana points or focus points. And then you have the Wondrous flask. And the Wondrous flask is special because it allows you to create a custom combination. So you can do Mix Wondrous. And this is where you have to mix crystal tears to get the different effect. So obviously you're going to need more than just the first crystal tier that you get, which this is a crimson crystal tier. So it restores half the total max HP when it's mixed. But you could have one that does like half your HP, half your stamina, or half HP and mana. There's a whole bunch of different combinations, but you have to find the crystal tiers to get that. And that one only stores 1 slot Period. That's it. It's got one use. It does not recharge unless you rest at a site of grace. So I would highly recommend that you save that specifically for like mini bosses, boss battles, or just really, really tough fight situations. The last thing, number 5, as far as what I would recommend doing, would be to go ahead and enter some dungeon runes and clear those out. Each dungeon rune is going to have various different enemies and mini bosses and bonuses. If you're playing a magic user like I am, though, you should probably do the waypoint runes one, because, well, if you can find the dungeon, it's a pretty nice dungeon, but there's various different options. You could do the coastal dungeon, which is like the Church of Ella over to the east. You could do that one. There's also a cave along the stream to the east. I believe it is around this area, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, there's the waypoint rune. Alright, so just to show you what lurks below, we are currently here in the waypoint runes. This is a dungeon that I would definitely recommend you hit up, especially as a magic user. There are a ton of poisonous plants that guard the entrance, and of course the main poisonous plant that is ridiculously strong. If you're a magic user, though, this main plant is relatively easy to take down with magic. The main things you have to worry about are the wide range poison attack, and then the really annoying, I would call it a light magic, or maybe even a miracle. So just kind of take this one from a distance using your spells. Without any upgrades or any level ups or anything of that nature, it should be fairly easy to just take it down. The basic glintstone spell is enough to do a considerable amount of damage to it. And once you kill off all the poison flowers, you'll be able to get at least 1 in 1 of the flask refills. You can also finish the flower off with melee. That spell is something to be careful of when it does that light attack spell. And watch out, obviously poison can kill you quickly. But you'll get your flasks restored when you kill it and the last couple little annoying enemies that are there around it. So ideally you'll be going in with pretty much max flasks. You might have 1 or 2 more charges than I do. And if you come down here, you'll find a little mini boss battle as to what they're calling a dungeon. So you can traverse the mist if you want for that. And you'll find Mr. Mad Pumpkinhead here. Of course, all bosses are going to be relatively tough, at least the first time you fight them. This guy's got like a ridiculous attack range. And can kill you super freaking easily. But once you get the fight down with them, especially if you summon the ashes, then you shouldn't have too much trouble and you can collect the loot and all of that fun stuff. So, don't die like I did. And I hope you have a much easier time getting Renna the Witch to show up. So hopefully this video has helped you guys out. Do me a huge favor and slap the like button and share the video with your friends, as that greatly helps me out with the searchability of videos on YouTube. Until next time, my brothers and sisters at Legion, stay frosty.